Are you an internet firearms expert or a keyboard commando?
Then please get the hell out.
If you're serious about talking everything gun culture, then get ready. Load up that clip with those shells and put them into that fully semi-automatic assault rifle with the shoulder attachment thingy. This is the Armed Citizen Podcast live. What is going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to the Armed Citizen Podcast live. This is episode number 96. We are live as always on YouTube and simulcasting as always over on GunChannels.com. I'm going to do this again. If you're not familiar with GunChannels.com, I really can't help you. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link out there, and you guys just seem to make your way over there. Gun Channels is a great, probably the best 2A pro-gun community out there on the internet. Started about 6 years ago by G-Webs, and it's a wonderful place to be around like-minded people. If you're new to the firearms and you have questions, there's always someone around there that can help you out. If you like watching content and all that, most of your creators that you guys probably like watching or hanging out over there. So come check us out over there and be part of the best community on the internet. Like I said, guys, we are live on YouTube. And tonight we're going to have Charlie Melton join us. I've talked to him a couple of times today. Everything's good to go. And hopefully he shows up. Maybe he's having some phone trouble, and you never know. Charlie's Charlie, so he's on his own time schedule. So maybe he'll show up when he gets here. We'll talk about. We're going to still talk about our weekend with Charlie. Weekend at Charlie's instead of weekend at Bernie's, but weekend at Charlie's and all of that stuff, to where we'll talk long range, some of the stuff that I learned, because prior to this weekend, I was long range ignorant, and learned so much this weekend. Had a great time with Charlie and all that. So let's run through our panel real quick and say, hey, from Arizona, we've got the Godfather himself. What's up, G?
Hey, not much. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for coming, and thanks for hosting the workshop earlier today. And for those that probably haven't looked at a calendar and didn't realize it, today is Every Second Matters. So happy Every Second Matters, everybody. We'll utilize this as our Every Second Matters project that we always do. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing that podcast earlier for the 2A workshop. It was great. What's up, Clover? We got the tactical leprechaun himself from Texas. What's up, buddy?
Well, I'm doing good. Recuperating from the weekend. Yeah, everything's going good.
Good. We had a great time. We got down there to Normandy.
Well,
Texas.
some of us had a better time than others, but yeah.
Well, that's true. It was a good time had by all. I think everyone had a good time.
Oh yeah,
We got down there, at least I got down there, and you got down there late Friday night. Rod, who the gun cleaner's out there, and that guy's wife's out there. Let's run through the room real quick and just say hello, everybody. So we didn't do that. So Gun Loving Grandpa's out there, G-Webs is out there, and in here, Scott P, Calaveras, Philo's out there, our newest member of the Patreon Ghost Squad, Daniel Pfeiffer's out there. Thank you, Daniel. Welcome to the dark side. Let's see here. D-Temp's out there. Off the X. What's up, buddy? Jason Stewart's out there. Am I missing anybody? The gun cleaners out there. Rod, I don't know if that's Rod and Shelly or just Rod or just Shelly, but the gun cleaners are out there. Spent the weekend with them as well. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And Rupan's out there. Midnight Range TM. Let's see here. Gizzard Gary. Rupan says hello to about 27 different people, so he is doing his job out there. Clint's out there, Double T's out there, and Rod says it's just Rod. That's all it is. It's just Rod. So, yeah. So we got down there Friday night and late Friday night and hung out. So I don't know, 1:30 or so. Warsaw's out there. Rich is out there, hanging out to about 1:30 or so. And just kind of talking with Charlie, and Philip was over there. Obviously, Rod and Shelly were there, and then me and Clover and Arminthia were out there, just kind of hanging out on Charlie's front porch, having a good time. And woke up. We were talking with Charlie. He's like, "Hey, so what time do you want to get going tomorrow?" And we're like, "Hey, man, it's whatever time you want to go." And he says, "Well, how about we wake up around 8:30 or 9, and we'll get breakfast. I'll cook some breakfast and we'll get to the range and the shop and all that. And Rod had told me that Charlie was a pretty good cook. But I had no idea how good of a cook he was until this weekend. It was unbelievable. So, what do we have Saturday morning? Do you remember? I think was that the biscuits and gravy?
Mm-hmm. Biscuits, gravy, and bacon. Yeah.
Biscuits, gravy, and bacon. And you want to talk about the gravy?
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I call that camp gravy.
Yeah,
I've had similar stuff before. Definitely have had nothing identical because that's kind of the point of that kind of gravy. But yeah, he had done like a wild game meatloaf with some, I think, deer and elk the night before or a couple nights before, or something like that, and had some of it left over. And the philosophy is you don't waste food, so he used that in the gravy. So I mean, it was a white gravy with that, and man, it was it seasoned good. I mean, there was a little bit of kick to it, a little bit of pepper in there. Yeah, it was pretty doggone good.
yeah, it was great. On here, sending him a text. Get him to come in. Anyway, so yeah, it was great. And then so we went to the shop Saturday, kind of took a tour of the shop, and not just the classroom where he does his class portion of, but he also has Charlie Mike Precisions where they build custom rifles and carbines, and they'll do customized work for handguns and stippling and Cerakoting and anything you can basically want. They can do there at Charlie Mike Precision. And for those of you that don't know who Charlie Melton is, I should have probably started off this. Charlie Melton was a Navy SEAL for 25 years, sniper. Went through, I think he said maybe 10 combat tours in his 25 years, and then ended up being an instructor. And he instructed within the teen guys. I think they're just normal guys, but for us, they're celebrities. You guys know who Marcus Luttrell, who was the Lone Survivor, the book Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg, and then the book obviously was Marcus Luttrell, and then obviously Chris Kyle, who's the American Sniper. He was their instructor, so he knew all those guys coming up from when they were just kind of starting out as baby seals, I guess. They seal pups, I guess.
Right, seal pups. Yeah, yeah.
So, but he was their instructor, so we were asking him questions about that. But anyways, we went through the classroom and then talked about Charlie Mike Precision, the rifles. And then he says, all right, let's head out to the range. And it was blazing hot. I'm not going to lie. It was blazing hot. And before we went to the range, we stopped off at his house. He says, hey, let's kind of take a break for the heat. It's a little hot. So we're thinking, okay, we'll do that. And that gave Armenthea time to go into the gun cleaner's trailer and shoot some videos on how to clean different guns and all that, which is awesome. And then I did a video with them as well, cleaning my AR, which it was an awesome time to hang out with them. But, Charlie watched a couple of movies, and so we finally got out to the range later on that afternoon, and he actually was going to have Clover. He was going to work with you a little bit and have you shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And you had some issues with
the horrible issues this weekend for me began. Yeah, got out there. My freaking crosshairs are candid on my scope. It's like, what in the crap just happened? So yeah, that took me out of the fight.
Yeah, so
I did get to try to kill Memphis later on. I mean, with the
yes, you did. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. That was pretty.
So I got some trigger time in. It was all good.
Yeah, so Memphis is Charlie's service dog, and I don't even know. I don't know if he's a mutt. He kind of looks like a chocolate lab with a greyhound body or something like that.
He's just a very fit lab.
Yeah, he really is.
But my God, as much as that dog runs, right?
Well, so the range is on this 1,000-acre ranch, and when we pull into the gate, Charlie
in the middle of it, pretty much.
Memphis is gone. And from that front gate, how far do you think it is to the range?
Dude, it's a couple miles or some crap, isn't it? It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
And that dog ran the entire time, was leading the pack. I mean, he was passing cars, and he was leading the pack.
Yeah, he will beat the vehicles down there.
Yeah. Yes. And so Memphis is awesome. We'll get to Memphis here in a little bit. So Clover's 308 kind of was acting screwy. And so he says, well, he pulls out his 6.5 Creed, and he says, who wants to go at 1,000? Hell, I do. Now, understand, guys that know me, 500 yards and in is kind of where I've done all of my work. You know, carbines and handguns. You get me 500 yards and in, and I'm feeling pretty good about my abilities to handle my shit. I have literally pulled one trigger outside of 750 yards, and I pulled it at 1,200 yards about 4 years ago. And it's a buddy of mine's 338 Lapua. Hey, Heat Shield, how you doing? 338 Lapua at 1,200 yards, but it was like a perfectly calm day. He had already hit it at 1,200 several times. It was ready to go. Like literally all I had to do was sit down, get everything ready, and pull a trigger. Pull a trigger. I hit the steel. I hit 1,200 yards. But I don't know anything except for, you know, I know how to get dope and all. I understand the concept and all that. I mean, when I was in the Marines, we did 500 yards with irons. So we had our own little dope book. We had to worry about our dope and all that. So that's not foreign to me, but the technology about scopes and all of that stuff, I am completely ignorant. And I think that people know that about me. I am not one of those that are going to sit there and talk about things that I have no idea. So I literally was a newbie to this. And so what was great there is, you know, when you're talking about basically for the first time learning how to shoot long distance, you've got this world famous Navy SEAL sniper. Not only is he a Navy SEAL sniper, he was the first person to attempt and hit a shot at 5,000 yards, which is 2.5 miles, a little over 2.5 miles. He broke that in 2017 or 2018, hit that, and was going to go out to Utah earlier this spring to hit 6,000. Well, while we were at SHOT Show, Clover and I got to hang out with him and Arminthia and Rod, hang out for about an hour at Antiri's this Sunday. And he was talking about going out to shoot 6,000. Well, sometime during the week of SHOT Show, a guy that he knows actually shot 6,100 and hit it to break his world record.
A little bit of controversy with that, apparently, too.
There was a little bit of controversy, but even Charlie will admit that he'll give him credit for the shot. He will, and I don't think that's just how Charlie is. He's not going to.
Right.
There might be some controversy, but he's going to give him credit for hitting that shot. You know.
Well, I'd like to take this public opportunity to apologize. I was just plinking. I had no idea that people were judging distance. It was a big competition, so I'm sorry.
Now, interesting you say about plinking. So he was out in Utah and trying to hit 6,500 yards, which is 3.5 miles. And if you guys followed Talking Lead on Facebook, they were with him out there in Utah, videoing all of this. And the first time he only had 10 rounds to do it and didn't hit. I think his very last one, he missed by a foot. I want to say he said it was like 12 inches. And if you think about it, he missed a steel target by 12 inches at 3.5 miles. I think the travel time is 24 seconds, he said. 24 seconds of travel time. That's just unbelievable to me. Didn't hit it, goes back last month and didn't hit it again, came really close again, but he calls it the taco, and it's basically a periscope. It shattered to where he couldn't see the target.
Yeah, TACCOM HQ Delta.
The TACCOM, there it is, the Delta. Yeah, the Charlie still worked, but the Delta broke. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So at that point, there was no chance that he could hit this thing. Came pretty close again, and all of that. So, anyways, that's the background on Charlie. So I'm sitting there, and he doesn't have me walk it out from 100 yards to 200. This range is great. It's 1,000-yard range, and at every 100 yards, there's steel targets. There's 5 steel plates at every 100-yard increment. So the idea is to walk it out to 1,000. Get your dope zeroed in on the 100, and then from there, walk it out to 1,000. But he's familiar with his own 6.5 Cree. He knows basically what the dope was. He said, "All right, let's go. We'll start at 1,000." So I'm thinking this is crazy. So I start shooting, and the wind's picking up. The clouds are rolling in, as we notice, and there's some lightning in the background. And I think I ended up taking about 25 to 30 shots. And all of a sudden, we needed Noah's Ark. It came a flood. Wind was blowing. Philip, his partner, said the wind was blowing to 46 miles an hour. And I came close. Clover was spotting for me, which was awesome. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And I think there was about 3 or 4 shots that I missed by just a few inches, right dead in the heart, but low a little bit. So I was really happy with that. I didn't hit the steel target at 1,000 yards, and but I was really happy of my progress, and I learned a lot.
Well, you didn't think you did at the time.
I didn't think I did at first. That's correct. I did not think I hit the steel target. Came out Sunday, and Philip was there, and he says, "Man, I swear, man, I really swear that I thought you hit that steel target on the last shot." And as a matter of fact, he said that he called hit, but no one heard him because the wind was literally blowing. And when I say the rain was coming in very hard and sideways, I'm not exaggerating. And we'll get to that because that's the second part of Clover's nightmare. So he comes out and he says, so that first thing this morning, I drove out, and sure enough, on the very last shot, I hit the steel. And at the time, he guesstimated the wind was blowing about 35. So for me to hit 1,000-yard shot with 35-mile-an-hour crosswind, I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah,
so,
pretty much a dead crosswind too, right to left. I mean,
it was brutal.
Yeah.
So it was fun. So there are some questions out there. I think maybe
in fact, you were holding. You only had 30 minutes, right? And you were having
30 minutes on that scope.
You were having to hold further than 30 minutes or something.
I was. He had maxed me out at 30 minutes, and then he had me move to the 30 minutes to the right edge of the steel, and then he had me hold
24 inch, which is this is important, which is a 24-inch piece of steel.
24-inch piece of steel, correct. So I was holding 30 minutes to the right edge of the steel plate. That's what the wind was doing. It was crazy. And for me, like I said, that was completely new. I was completely out of my comfort zone. But I'm not going to lie, when I left Sunday afternoon, and then I spotted for the two guys all day Sunday pretty much, and I learned so much from just listening to Charlie and Philip calling out different dope settings and their holds and all that. It was fascinating. And I'm sitting there, and Clover sitting next to me, and I'm asking him questions and talking with him, and I'm asking every question. Like, I mean, I'm an absolute newbie at long range. So I wasn't trying to act like I knew what I was doing. I was literally trying to get as much information from everyone that I could. And when I left Sunday, I left there enamored by long range shooting. I'm in. I cannot wait to get my first rifle. Man, I'm so excited to get this thing going, because for me, it's a whole new experience and a whole new part of the gun industry and the gun community that I'm not aware of and all that. And I don't know if I'm ever going to do, I probably would like to do maybe some long range competition, precision competition down the road. But man, that was just something to me that I remember the first time I shot my M16, and I got like a little kid at Christmas, just excited and giddy and all of that, and really just loved it. And then shooting Saturday with Charlie, and later on knowing that I hit it 1,000 yards with that kind of wind, that was honestly one of the best experiences that I've ever had with a firearm. I can't imagine. Arminthia was talking about, she was videoing most of the shots on Saturday, and she would have loved, and I would have loved to have it on video had I known that I hit that last shot. I mean, I probably would have been jumping up and down and all that, but that would be phenomenal to have that video. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, Clover had some interesting tales this weekend. You want to talk about your journey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously nobody had brought a spotting scope. And so Charlie said, "Hey, has anybody out here got glass?" And I'm like, "Well, I do on the rifle, but if I can see through it. The crosshairs were canted, but I could still see through it." So, yeah, I was using it. It was out, and it was laying on my mat down there. So I got down on there and spotted, and like I said, those well, before the storms rolled in, I guess. The storms were kind of just starting to roll in, and I switched over to the pistol range. Had the 300 blackout suppressed SBR shooting at a Texas Star, and Charlie's dog Memphis decides he's going to chase the bullets, basically.
And they told us he was going to do that initially, but we didn't
And I've
believe him.
got, yeah, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And it's on video. I've got the video of it. I'm scared to put it up on YouTube because it looks like you're trying to shoot a dog. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I'm afraid of doing it, afraid of getting banned because of putting that up. But we all know that's not the case. But that's almost what it looks like. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I may try to put that up and share it with patrons or something, if nothing else, because it is a crazy video. Thanks for taking that, by the way, because that was amazing. But anyway, so I start shooting this Texas Star, and this dog literally is trying to chase the bullets. And he's running back and forth. And at one point, he gets behind the Texas Star. And so I stop, and I'm like, he's behind the target, you know. And so we say something to Charlie. We're like, Memphis is behind the target. He was like, so, yeah, like he didn't care one bit if you shot and his dog was out there. And I'm like, I'm thinking something can ricochet, right? It's like anything can happen. We're shooting at steel. And so anyway, they called him in. But I didn't even get done with that. Really, I didn't even get done with with dumping a mag in that thing, and that's when the rain hit. And yeah, that's when the bad weekend bad stuff started for me. My 308 got soaked. I'm talking about soaked to the bone. And unfortunately, by the time I should have took a picture of it, Ghost can tell you because Ghost seen it when we opened the case.
I came around the corner and it was like, oh my God. That was my first reaction was, it actually I didn't say that. It's something much worse.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was literally red from rust. And so I got it into to Charlie's shop and started tearing everything apart and cleaning it as much as I could. And unfortunately, that thing has only seen cases and benches and fair weather and that sort of thing. And I gotta say, I'm a bit disappointed. It's aged. It's not a new rifle by any means. But I'm kind of disappointed in the coating. You know what I'm saying? And the finish on it, that it did that bad. Because if it would have been Cerakoted or something, it would not have been bad at all. And so yeah, that sort of sucked. But the good news on that front is last couple of days we actually talked with a couple of people, so we're gonna trade off some promotion and content and stuff like that for them Cerakoting that, and by God, it won't happen again. So that's a good thing for that. And then my other woes happened on when we went out to the range on Sunday. We get out there and I pull my phone out of my pocket and the screen's broke on it.
Oh, I forgot about the phone. Yeah, I
forgot for whatever reason. I can't explain it. So it wasn't when it went into my pocket and then it come out of my pocket, it was broke. So I don't know.
You banged something when we were at the shop that morning?
Don't know what I don't know. I keep going through over in my mind what I did to crack the screen, and I have no idea because I've never cracked a screen on a phone ever. So, and it didn't get dropped, so I don't know. I had to have leaned up against something or banged up against something or something. I guess maybe, but that's rode around in my pocket. How long have I had this phone? You know what I mean? So I had to have done something weird at some point.
You can you can
Go ahead.
rule out like obvious things, like it wasn't a 9mm ricochet because that wouldn't have broken it.
Well, it's true. That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I love you.
Is this your new phone or the old one?
It's the new one.
Nice.
The brand new one.
So what do they say about being able to buy new things or give them a nice phone, but you can't take them off?
Right.
What caliber do they use to shoot 2 or 3 miles? Ghost Leaf?
408 Tejas
Really?
proprietary cartridge. Yeah, I don't know. Ghost don't got a camera anymore. He may have dropped, so something weird may have happened. I don't know because I'm getting no camera feed from him. So, but yeah, it's a proprietary round that was developed, and that was some cool stuff. Talking with Charlie, was talking about some of the different calibers and different rounds that he's used, and I mean, he's got a buddy, I can't remember his name now, that's really big into cartridge development, and one of the ones he used, I can't remember, but he's used a lot for shorter range stuff. But
What are we talking about?
Oh, they asked what caliber that was used.
Okay. So the 5,000 above, he and Brad Starr with Tejas rifles out and all that built a rifle, and it's a 408 Tejas. It's a proprietary round, and it's basically an old Chi-Tac neck down. And he said that it hits at 7,000 yards, and it's still at 800 feet per second at 7,000 yards. It's the 408 Tejas. Is what he's used. Now he said there's another one that's like what, a 408 338 is like a brand new one that Brad was working on. Is that right?
Yeah.
That'd
Is
be
it true, or is it not true that Tejas is just a fancy way to say Texas?
It's a fancy way.
It's the Spanish way of saying Texas.
Right.
7,000 yards. That's correct, Heat Shield. You heard me right. 7,000 yards. He missed at 6,500 yards by 12 inches, 3.5 miles. So the 408 Tejas. Yeah. Charlie just called. Rod's right. His phone went to crap yesterday. So it was not a good weekend for phones. He just switched over today to Android. He's still trying to figure out how to work Hangouts. So he's trying to get in. He'll be right in. And
Did he let Clover mess with his
there
phone?
he is. Hey, he made it. What's up, bro?
Trey, what's up? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Awesome, brother. How's it going?
Oh man, it's going good. So we were talking about your phone a little bit. So it just crapped out on you yesterday.
Yes, sir.
All right, so guys, we have Charlie here, and we've been talking about you, kind of get everyone the background. So it
Are you
actually
there?
worked. Can you hear me now?
Hello?
Hear you? Can you hear me, Charlie?
Yep, I got you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so the last half an hour, we were just kind of talking about the weekend. We were down there with you and giving people a background and all that. So I want to kind of give you the floor a little bit and talk about Charlie Mike Precisions, the training and the rifle sides for people out there that might want to hear about what you're doing. And there's be some questions about your shooting the world record. Sure.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, a little bit about Charlie Mac Precision. We're based out of Normandy, Texas. Obviously, you guys been down. We start out teaching long range pistol carbine courses. Obviously, long range is our specialty. So we start out teaching courses, and we just started building custom guns about a year ago. Obviously, I've brought in like some of the best gun builders in the world to train my guys up. So you saw some of our guns; they're pretty sweet. I'll put them up against in the world. But yeah, it's a great time, and it's not just coming down shooting on the range. It's like an experience. You come down, get to hang out, eat some good food, shoot all day, and then if you want, we can do hunts, hog hunts, thermal hunts, whatever you want to do.
And I can verify, and so can Clover, when he says eat some good food, you have no idea. Guy can be a gourmet chef, honestly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think I get more compliments on my cooking than my shooting instruction.
That's not true.
There's Marley. What's up, Marley?
Hey, how are you?
We're good. We're good. So we were talking about, my experience as far as on Saturday. I think I hit 1,000 when I got there Sunday. I found out that I did, but the win was for me. My first time to really experience that long range shooting. Having you walk me through steps was crazy. So when you have classes, you're not just looking for people that have a lot of experience shooting long range. You're able and probably willing to have complete new beginners.
Yes, sir. I'll train kids from 5 years old and older. We've done some kid groups. We do women and people that's never shot a gun before up to competition shooters. We can customize our courses to whatever the customer wants.
I'm the perfect example, actually.
Yeah. The great
Yeah,
thing about
I'm a perfect example.
you taught me so much. And then Sunday, me spotting was phenomenal as well, because that allowed me to really learn a lot more than just sitting there watching someone shoot. But having spotting, I learned the different calls and where to hold for different situations and different distances and all that. So that was fascinating for me as well. And Charlie, I think I muted you, so you might have to hit the mute button. It's the microphone button on your phone.
When you tap the screen, it's down towards the bottom.
Tap the screen, and the bottom of the screen will be a microphone. Charlie, hit that microphone. I think I muted you, so you need to unmute yourself on your phone. Uh-oh.
Yeah, unless it was a...
Did a couple of times you might be talking.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie, if you can hear me, tap your phone, and on your screen of the Hangouts, there will be a microphone. Tap the microphone picture. I think I muted you. You need to unmute yourself. Don't know if you can hear me or not. You're muted, Charlie. Hit the microphone, the picture of the microphone on your phone on the Hangouts app. So hopefully we'll come back in. No, this is Charlie's.
Okay, got it. Can you hear me now? Oh.
There you go. There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Now you're muted again. So hit the button again. Oh, hit the button again, Charlie. You went back to mute. Okay, you're still.
Can you hear me now?
There you
go. Now you're back.
All
Now
right.
you're. Here we go.
All right.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you were talking before. So as far as beginners, I have a question for you for beginners. Bolt gun. You had me shoot an AR, a gas operated gun, AR 65 Creedmoor. But for a beginner kind of getting into this like myself, if I'm looking to buy a new long range rifle, reach out to 1,000 yards, what's kind of the best caliber and bolt action versus AR platform or gas operated? What would you suggest?
Well, the gas guns have come a long way nowadays. So yeah, the ARs are shooting like our ARs are shooting quarter-minute groups, and so they're pretty comparable. So, but they're kind of pricey to get a gun that does that. But to get into it at a cheap price, if you're just beginning or whatever, I would recommend going out to a course that rents guns and shoot a couple different ones and see what you like better. But it's always better to have a custom made gun that fits you and does what you want to do. So when we sell guns, we have guys come in and fill out a form saying what they want to do with the gun, what their goals are, and then we build it to what they want it to do. But yeah, bolt guns are awesome. Good gun to start on, and they're super accurate. But nowadays the AR platforms they're shooting pretty tight groups.
So let's say someone already has their rifles. Not only do you build guns from scratch, from the bottom up, completely custom, you can take someone's existing rifles, have them send it to you, and have you do upgrades. You can upgrade everything, correct?
Yes, sir. We can take whatever rifle you have, and you can replace the barrel, chassis, whatever you want. It's kind of like build a bear, but build a gun. So you can bring in your existing rifle, and again, depending on what you want to do with it and what capability you want from it, we can customize it and make it to your specs.
Now, obviously, you're known as a couple different things. Obviously, a SEAL, but the long range stuff. But you also offer carbine classes, handgun, pistol, self-defense classes, and all that. When you're talking about these different classes, obviously, I'm going to put your website is charliemikeprecision.com. I've put the link out in the chat a couple times. I'm going to keep putting it out there. Go check them out. But tell them a little about the online courses. Well, this is something that I think that could really help people a lot without having to leave their house sometimes.
Yes, sir. A lot of people don't have time to come out and shoot or whatever. And obviously we're based out of Normandy, Texas, but we teach all over the US. But we also, about a year ago, I filmed an online course. So basically the classroom portion of the course is available online. and I think it's like $300 or whatever. But when you take that online, if you ever want to come out and do the actual course, that gets deducted from your course, so it becomes free. But that's the classroom portion of it, and obviously that'll give you a lot of information. But until you're actually on the gun and getting coached through what you're doing right and wrong, obviously that helps out more.
Well, for me, it was amazing to shoot on Saturday with you because, like I said, I'd never done that. I'd literally pulled one trigger in my life at a long distance, and you were sitting there talking to me about the breathing and your natural respiratory pause and this stuff, and it made sense. And a lot of the stuff that I had heard before in the Marines about trying to, to shoot at the bottom of your breath. I'd always heard that, but the way you explained it to me was really great. And for me, like I said, for me, that was an experience to listen to you and you say, okay, now remember I was shooting at a 24-inch plate, guys, at 1,000 yards, and the scope that I had went out with a max of 30 minutes. And I was holding that 30 minutes on the right edge of the steel plate because that's as far as I could go. And it was one of those things that was really, really weird. Obviously, they were not ideal, optimal conditions to be shooting at 1,000 yards. But for me, it was a nice way to learn what wind can have an effect on something that's moving that fast. That was really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about, well, before I do that, I want to say bring in Clover and G-Webs. Do you guys have any questions or comments towards Charlie real quick?
I don't have a question right now, but I did pick up on something this weekend. I've always shot meal, and I don't know that I'm going to be shooting meal anymore because compared to minute, the math sucks on meal.
What is it? Because I called meal MOA is American and meal is metric.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a meal at 100 is like 3.5 inch, 3.6 or something like that, right?
Yeah, about 3.6.
Yeah. So the math is just
same as a minute. A minute you can it's rounded up to 1 inch at 100, but it's a bunch of decimal points different, but it'll get you on target.
Right.
Like I said before, like you got to shoot the yard lines to get your true dope.
Right. So yeah, the math seems easier on the minute.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, I shot mills for 25 years in the military, but yeah, once I got out on the civilian world and figured out, I was like, especially when you're teaching people, it's a lot easier to teach people with simpler math, because a lot of people aren't very good at math, especially adding decimal points.
So if you had a suggestion for someone first starting out, you would suggest going to an MOA scope if at all possible.
I would, just for ease of learning, unless they're like really good at math and decimal points. But mill and MOA, they work the same. It's just an increment of measurement. So I wouldn't. There's no difference. It's just the math thing.
There you go. G, do you have anything you want to bring up or questions for Charlie?
You guys have been describing the weekend and stuff, but not too much the class. So I don't know if I have any specific questions other than I don't know how to ask it. Like, if the general theory or philosophy of your teaching, is it to get someone a rifle that's competent and teach them how to use it, or is it to teach the shooter on no matter what's in front of them? Or is that a real question to ask? Is that a line that is necessary?
Yes, sir. That's actually a very good question. But yeah, so our level 1 course, it's kind of like building a house. You have to have a good foundation before you can ever build up levels. So what we teach in our level 1 course is the principles of shooting. So I have 7 basic principles I teach, and I taught those when I was in the military and everything else, wrote curriculum on them. But those 7 principles, until you learn how to perfect those and build that muscle memory through perfect practice and repetition, it'll be very hard for you to advance your skills in shooting.
There you go.
So sort of learn and then buy it. So sort of learn and then get a tool that gives you the ability to use your skill, so that you're not just immediately discouraged that you buy something that you can't run.
Yes, sir. I mean, obviously, if you're going to shoot long range, you have to put some money into your gun and optics. But I mean, as far as building those principles of shooting, they don't change whether you're shooting a pistol, a rifle, or a shotgun, or a bow and arrow. Those principles are the same. So, I mean, if you don't have a lot of money to spend, you can go buy a little 22 Ruger and shoot at 25 yards, and you can practice those principles and build all that up, and that will all transfer into long range shooting or any kind of shooting you want to do.
So, Charlie, we got a couple questions out there. One of them was, and I understand what he was trying to say. I think he's a fan of the 7.62 by 39 round, but I think he was basically asking, is it possible to take an AK platform rifle and make it into a decent long range rifle? Is that possible?
What do you call a long range? An AK? You probably get an
AK can go several hundred, let's say 1,000 yards. Can you take a 7.62 by 39 and make an AK-47 into a decent 1,000-yard rifle?
If you can, I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, that round just doesn't have the ballistics to go that far. I mean, that the AK-47 was developed as a 300 to 400 yard gun.
Right. Okay.
And it's not that the gun can't be accurate, right? It's just that that bullet can't do that.
Yes, it's the bullet ballistics. That round just can't go that far. Even with a 308, I mean, guys that know what they're doing, if you spend a lot of money on a 308 round, you can shoot out past 1,000 yards. But when you start getting wind with a 308, it starts blowing around. If you ever compare and shoot a 308 with a 6.5 Creedmoor, it just blows it out of the water. You can shoot that far with a 308, but you got to put some money into the gun, and you have to definitely have your principles of shooting down.
And see, that's a cool thing is, you and I were talking about, me getting my first rifle, and I'd ask you, a great caliber, and you had said the 6.5 Creed is extremely accurate. It will fight through the wind, and if for a 1,000-yard rifle, a 6.5 Creed, especially with the cost of that ammo, is a great place to start. There's a question out there that wants to know, what's your favorite bolt action rifle for long range distances?
My favorite bolt action rifle for long range is the Charlie Mike Precision 300 Tejas.
There you go. What is your favorite caliber for long range?
My favorite caliber has always been 300 Win Mag, and obviously I work with a guy called Brad Starr. He's probably one of the top 3 best gun builders in the world. I hooked up with him back when I first started my company, but he takes different rounds to the next level and makes up a Tejas round. But 300 Win Mag, you can't go wrong with it. And when you shoot it, the 300 Win Mag is very similar ballistics to the 6.5, but it just has a lot more punch when it hits the target.
A lot more expensive.
And also the 6.5 Creedmoor is an awesome round, but most 6mm rounds are very ballistically awesome. The 6.5 Creedmoor was just marketed better, and the reason I recommend that is because you can buy the ammo anywhere, and Hornady makes awesome ammo right off the shelf. Their match grade ammo is pretty cheap, and it's hard to even rebuild rounds that shoot better.
Yeah, there's out there about Chris Kyle's McMillan out there, the 338 Lapua, and that's an awesome one. But we have what's that?
On the 300 Win Mag. So I've got friends that own them, and I've had to zero them in for them because of the recoil. Do you recommend shooting a manageable recoil gun and then using the 300 Win Mag, or do you say just shoot 300 Win Mag in your practice and everything and learn how to, or do you have ways to mitigate the recoil? Because that's been some real recoil.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I would recommend, if you're just starting shooting, to get you a 22 long rifle bolt action gun and shoot at 20 yards and practice your principles of shooting and get that down. And once you get that down, then you can jump up to whatever gun you want to build. But building your principles, there's nothing better than shooting a 22 at 20 yards. Because once you learn the principles of shooting and you're putting those rounds in the same hole at 20 yards, all those principles will transfer into shooting long range or bigger calibers.
That's a great point. We have another question out there, and we know about the custom rifles and the Tejas rifles that you're using in the Charlie Mike Precision. But as far as the shelf guns, the Remingtons, the Savages and all those. Do you have one of those $400-$500 price range bolt rifles for someone that can't jump into the custom game or the high end game, but someone that wants to start dabbing in the long range but might have $500? Do you have anything out there that you could recommend for people?
You can get a decent gun off the shelf for $400 or $500 for a gun. Obviously, that's not going to include your optic. But
Sure.
again, if you want to get into the long range game, you have to have a very accurate weapon, and your optic or glass is going to cost you a lot of money. But at the same time, if you're just starting out, just get you a decent 22 and a good scope, something you can see out at 25 yards, and build those principles up. Once you get those principles up and you're really interested in it, then go spend the money on a big gun or a nice gun that can reach out and touch as far as you want to shoot.
Clover, you have anything for Charlie right now?
I did, and then we got to talking about other things, and I don't remember what it was now. Pass me up. Come back to me.
All right, I'll come back to you. There's some people out there talking about Chris Kyle and all that. We were talking about Marcus earlier, and people know Chris Kyle and Marcus Luttrell and all that. You were their instructor. You knew these guys. I think Marcus is one of your best friends to this day, but you knew Chris when he's coming up. And I know that you said at one point that you were giving Chris like an abbreviated class. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. When they went through the course, they were getting ready to deploy. That was about right when the war kicked off, so we had to shorten a little bit. But Chris and a couple other guys that were getting ready to deploy, we had to shorten the course a little bit. So I kind of pulled them off to the side and ran them through that. And then he ends up going over and getting more kills than anybody. Pretty impressive.
Everyone knows the amount of the kills that Chris had was, and I mean, obviously he was very, very good, but did you notice anything about, does Chris stand out in your class? Like, hey, this guy's really good, or was he kind of in the right place at the right time? Or, I mean, I guess everything luckily has to fall into the right place, but did you notice anything about Chris Kyle that was special when you first met him?
Chris was an awesome guy. He was special. Obviously, he's a fellow Southern guy. He's from Texas. I grew up in Georgia, but I live in Texas now. But yeah, he was an awesome dude. Good friend. Loved him to death. But that's what SEAL Sniper School is kind of like a separate level. You go through stuff. So yeah, everybody that goes through SEAL Sniper School are top-notch shooters, and yeah, they can hang with anybody.
Yes, I mean they're all obviously at that point they're all good.
I mean, that's kind of, I mean, it has a pretty high fail rate going to sniper school. So if you graduate special warfare or SEAL sniper school, you're pretty at the top of your game.
Yeah, you're at the
and it's not just the shooting part; it's everything else. There's a lot that goes into being a sniper.
Now, you and I were talking over the weekend about, basically the sniper teams being 2-man teams, and you have a lead shooter, and then what is it, a backup? Is it secondary? What's the terminology for the second shooter? More of your spot.
Obviously, there's tons of different sniper missions, and basically, ultimate best case scenario, you go in with you have a shooter spotter scenario, but sometimes it varies. Especially when the war kicked off, we had a lot of lessons learned over. We're doing a lot of urban stuff, so we weren't going out with 2-man teams. We're going in with whole platoons, and we would take over a house or whatever, and then the snipers would go up and build hides and shoot people. That way we have enough people to fight out when they figured out where we were. So the stuff we did in Ramadi wasn't typical sniper stuff, but yeah, ultimately a 2-person team would be the most deadly and sneakiest way to employ a sniper.
Now, there is a famous story that you're kind of a legend within the team guys. When you were over there, you had a special, I don't know how to call this, a special situation that made you famous. Do you want to tell some people about this, or you don't want to on live TV? You don't have to, but it's a great story.
No, which one?
The grenade story.
Oh, the grenade story. Yeah, a sniper with a grenade kill. That's awesome. But yeah, so when we were in Ramadi, obviously the best deployment I had out of 25 years, but we got to do a lot of operating and a lot of sniper missions. But one of the TTPs they had over there is when they figured out where we were, they would come over and throw grenades on the roof or in the windows, whatever house we were shooting out of. So I always kept a grenade next to my gun, just in case that happened. So one day we were doing an op. I think it was Christmas Eve. So we were doing an op, and obviously you have your shooting partner. So we would do 3 hours on, 3 hours off, and rotate snipers on the guns. I always kept a grenade next to mine. So it was the end of my 3 hours. So I was getting ready to go downstairs, take a little nap, and obviously we had some air guys with us. We had C-130s up above that could see everything. So I was getting ready to go take a nap, but I stopped by the guy that was watching everything, and he had a little screen where we could see probably 10 or 12 blocks around us. So I was looking at the screen, and I saw these guys coming out of this building, like moving toward us kind of tactically for Iraqis. And I was like, I thought to myself, these guys are coming to throw grenades at us. So I walked back up on the roof, and my buddy that was laying next to the gun, I'm like, hey, Dave, let me see that grenade. And he's like, what? So he hands me the grenade, and I pull the pin and throw it. And it lands on the corner of the we're on a 3-story building, so it lands on the corner, crosses the light on the corner of the building. And about 5 seconds later, all 4 of those guys around at the corner, they were coming to throw grenades at us. And it went off and like killed all 5 of them. And the air guy's like, direct hit. Everybody's like, what the fuck? Or what the heck? Sorry, that made the coach. So everybody stands up, throws a grenade. Yeah, it was more luck than anything, but yeah. Pretty funny. Yeah. It's not getting
everything's a little bit of luck, but that's just hilarious. The whole point of a sniper is getting 5 kills with a grenade. That's pretty good stuff right there.
Yeah, I think I was wearing a Santa Claus hat too.
If he could have done that enough, he might have surpassed Kyle for
right.
kills, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Chris is always one of those guys that's always in the right place at the right time. But yeah, our platoon relieved his platoon in Ramadi, and that's where he got most of his kills.
Yeah, they were talking about.
Chris is a good dude. He was awesome.
Yeah, that was. I remember that when that whole thing went down, it was national news, and it was just it's crazy. But knowing the fact that you kind of knew him and Marcus before, obviously, hit the big time and all that's kind of crazy because a lot of us that are watching these movies. You're like, oh man, and then you meet someone that says, oh yeah, I knew him, and not only that, but Marcus is like your best friend, and his dad doesn't live too far from you or something like that. So that's kind of interesting when you talk about. I know most of the team guys don't like the whole famous thing and all that, but it is one of those things that it's kind of cool to know that Chris Kyle. You hear stories that some of the things that Chris supposedly did maybe not have happened, but it's nice to know that they were legit and not on top of a great shooter, but he's a great guy as well. He seemed like a good guy, but
yeah, he was awesome. And there's always, people are always going to talk shit or everybody's story ain't what it was, but you know what? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. I'm sure you can ask 2 people 3 different stories, and you'll get 3 different stories. So
no doubt.
People always like to make shit up and point fingers, but
that's right.
I guarantee you there's some heroic stuff done, and it was awesome.
Yeah. I got a question that wants to know what your favorite pistol is.
My favorite pistol?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a SIG guy. I've been trying to be a Glock guy, and we actually customize Glock. But I'm a big fan of SIG 6-hour. I love SIGs. I love STIs. My favorite pistol is one that shoots good and straight, and no safeties and minimum recoil.
How about that? G, you had a question earlier. I wanted to come back to you. I think I might have gizzarded you a little bit.
So going back to the theory of the class, I guess, theory of the instruction. I'm curious. I'm not a long range shooter, but I've been around plenty of guys that have been into it at different levels, and it seems like there's different schools of thought, maybe, or different ways to approach the glass. So is your philosophy more of put all your money into one glass and know how to move that glass from rifle to rifle, or take your glass budget and distribute it up so you have glass on each rifle? Or is that a line in the sand that doesn't need to be made?
Yeah, my answer to that is like I was talking about earlier, the principles of shooting. You got 7 principles of shooting: sight, picture, and you got to know your equipment. So figure out what glass you like, and if you got the money, obviously buy one for each of your scopes. but you need to know your equipment. So whenever you pick a reticle, if you start shooting different reticles all the time, especially when you're starting out and trying to learn, then it's just going to be confusing. I would pick a certain reticle that works good that you like, or a certain scope, and I would stick with that and know that thing inside out, like your wind holds, your wind calls, everything, and learn your equipment and stick with that same glass. And if you don't have a big budget, switch it from gun to gun, or if you can afford it, stick with the same glass and the same reticle.
Then a follow up, since you mentioned it, I was going to ask: do you have a favorite reticle, or are you more of the learn a reticle and then know them all?
Well, with my job now, I've been teaching for about 3 years now, so obviously I have to know all of them and deal with them. But my favorite, obviously, Night Force is a big favorite of mine. I've taken a bullet through one; it still worked. But I like the Night Force ATAC-Rs with the MOAR reticles. That's one of my favorite reticles. The Christmas trees are good, but some of them are a little too busy.
So I'm not familiar with that one. That one isn't so busy. It's not like some of them that have like a big grid underneath.
Yeah, like the Trimmer 3 and some of those, they got a lot of stuff in there. And I would recommend starting on one of those reticles. They have a lot of good info, and if you got a gun with little or no recoil, they're very useful. But if you got recoil, it's hard to like get back on target and figure out what you were holding on. Because the MOAL reticles is the basic, like up and down with tick marks. You definitely want points of reference for holding wind and holding elevation if you hold it.
Seems like with some of those you lose half your glass, right? It's like you have to go find it up top and then go do the math underneath. When
yes,
practical, like
and when you're shooting a scope, especially if you're shooting a not as expensive scope, you always want to try to shoot as close to the middle of your reticle as you can. When you start getting toward the edge of your reticle, it starts stuff starts getting a little off, especially in the lower budget reticles.
And they just wanted to clarify, you took a bullet, so that Night Force was able to get hit with a round and still operate effectively for you.
Yes, sir. I'm a big fan, and I just like Night Force's glass. Their glass is their coating on their glass is very clear. I like their reticles. I like everything about Night Force. Obviously, I like other reticles. Valdata makes a great scope. Vortexes are decent. Some of their higher ends. Right on for the money. Like it just depends on your budget and what you're trying to do. Same thing when people come to build rifles. We ask them, like, what are you trying to do? How far you want to shoot? And like, what is your goal for your rifle? And then you kind of build it to that. But Right On makes a great scope. It's a lower budget scope. Different companies, Athlon, a bunch of different companies make lower budget scopes. But when you start reaching out far and you're really getting into long distance shooting, you definitely are going to have to spend some money on some glass.
Well, that's a great point to bring up for someone like myself who's just now I'm enthralled. I left this weekend and I'm in. I cannot wait to get my first rifle, and we're gonna do this. But for someone out there that is just interested in, when you talk about a rifle in glass, I've heard a lot of people say that you almost want to spend twice as much on your optic than you do on the rifle. Is that about true, or is there a way to get 1,000-yard gun for $1,000, including optic, and be okay to start with? Is that kind of like the low end of the budget you should look for, or how do you go about your budget? Is it 1/3 gun, 2/3 optic, or 50/50, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, again, it depends on how accurate you want to be. You can go buy a Mustang GT or a Ferrari, but yeah, when you're shooting, for $1,000, it'd be very hard to get a gun and an optic that can shoot 1,000 yards consistently.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not possible, and then that's going to go on top of your skill level too and your training. But I would say if you want to do the best of the best, you're going to spend the same amount on your gun as you do your optic. You could probably get away with spending a little less on your gun and more on your optic, but the gun definitely has to be good. I mean, a lot of if guys are just getting started, the Ruger Precisions, they're pretty accurate. Anything in 6.5, the Savage 110s, they're all awesome guns, but again, you have to spend a little money on your optic on it. So you can get those for about 12 to $1,500, and then you're going to spend at least another 15 on a decent optic to get you out to 1,000. So I'd say for a decent 1,000-yard gun, you can be consistent with. You're looking at least $2,000 to $3,000.
There you go. And that's like you said, that's without the training. So you can have all the equipment in the world, but if you don't know how to do it properly, you're never going to hit. So
Yeah, you can buy a G5 for for however many millions of dollars, but if you don't learn how to fly it, you're probably going to crash.
Exactly. You were talking earlier. We were talking over the weekend about when you go down range, when you were in the SEALs and you were heading over there. You and I talked about this, but it's an interesting question. Did you get to choose the rifle that you shot with downrange, or did they issue one, or did you have choices?
Yeah, as a SEAL sniper, you get issued a sniper suite, so you have 5 different rifles. So you get to pick the rifle as far as like what the mission is. But they were all built by the same people back then. But yeah, so you do have a suite. You get to pick what rifle for the mission, but it's not like you get to go out and custom make your own gun. And to be honest with you, there's so much better stuff out there nowadays. It's crazy. Technology has came a long way.
Now, if for instance, if someone was going to go and is now gone through the school and is now a SEAL sniper, could they get a rifle built by you and utilize that in mission, or do you have to use at that point an issued rifle?
No, sir. You have to use government approved rifles that are with government programs and stuff done like that, which they're built well, but same thing. Even the rounds we used to shoot weren't that great. So there's a lot better stuff out there. But yeah, when you're in the military, you have to use what they give you.
Yeah. Clover, did you ever remember what you were going to ask earlier?
No, I didn't. But when we were talking about the glass, and one thing to keep in mind, especially if you decide that you're going to get serious about it, for sure, is a spotting scope, and those things, the ones like we're out on the range Sunday, those particular models are not cheap. They're as much as your rifle.
A spotting scope is definitely not cheap. I mean, you can get away when you're shooting at 1,000, you can get away with a $2,000 or $3,000 spotting scope. But yeah, when you start getting out past that, you definitely got to spend some money on a spotting scope.
So
I'm lucky. I still have the one I use in the teams. I've had it for 17 years. It's I've dove it in underwater, jumped it in. It's been through hell, and I can still see better stuff than any other one I've seen on the market.
Okay, so Patrick out there has a question for you. He wants to know, have you had the chance to use the scope with the ACSS reticle? If so, what are your opinions on it?
Which one?
He didn't say, he just says, have you had a chance to use the scope with the ACSS reticle?
I'm not sure what that is. ACSS.
So, Patrick, if you're out there, if you could
Is that
maybe
long range?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I'm not sure what that is.
But
But I guess the answer would be no, because I don't even know what it is.
I have an opinion because you've never heard of it or shot it. So yeah.
Partially illuminated thing with a scale and a little arrow up top.
Oh, the primary arms one? Yeah, that's not really a long range. That's more like a combat scope. But yes, I have seen those. I haven't shot them a lot yet. I've sold a few on some of our AR-15. Everybody I've talked to are very impressed with them, and they're not that expensive either. But that is definitely not a long range scope.
That's more of a close quarter carbine scope, I guess.
It's more of a battle scope. It's good out there, like probably 600-700 yards at the most.
100 yard shots, well within that capability. Then, okay.
Yes, sir.
And Patrick did clarify, yes, it was the primary arm scopes. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, primary arms make some good combat scopes too. We use those. We saw our 6.5 Grendel we built. We had that Steiner 3 power on there, but they're very similar to that primary arms.
Yeah.
The primary arms make some good stuff.
We've got another question out there about the electronic targeting system. A lot of ranges are going to electronic targets, and Rucan RX out there wants to know: have you ever used an electronic targeting system where you can kind of look on the app to see where you shot?
What do you mean by electronic targeting system? Like a video camera or the programs?
Yeah, like a camera out there at the target, and then the view screen, so you don't have to have an optic, like a scope. You can just look through the TV screen and see where your hits hit.
Yes, sir. We've been working with a couple different companies, but Target Vision. What's the other one? There's a couple of them out there. We've been using them, and the biggest thing with those guys, I mean, they're awesome out to 1,000. We could put them up everywhere and see, and they work good. You get them on your iPhone where your hits are. But the problem is, like, we're trying to get them when we're doing the 6 or 5 to 7,000 yard shots. We're trying to get them out that far where we can see. But the problem is having them relay the cameras to each other where you can get out that distance. But yeah, they work awesome and out to 1,000 yards.
Well, they're probably not. I would think they're not real great at, if you're on target, they're probably not that bad. But, if you're trying to walk something in to see where where you're missing, are they that great for something like that?
Yeah, obviously, if you're if you're just slinging rounds out there and don't know where you're hitting, I mean, if you got your training down and you're close in the area, yeah, you can set it up. You can set up in front. You can set one up in front and off to the side, and you can see if you're missing left and right or front and back. And they work awesome out to 1,000. And a couple of those companies are working on having where you can set them up at each yard line. They'll relay to each other and send the signal back. So I think within the next 6 months, we'll see something that'll work out as far as you want to go.
Wow.
There's an interesting question, and who was this that asked it? I guess it was
Heat shield.
Okay, heat shield. Yeah, about the Coriolis effect at long distance. Is that something that you're familiar with, and is it a real thing at long range distances?
I'm very familiar with it, and it is a thing, but it doesn't really. It's not a huge effect until you get out to super long distances.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's not a the Coriolis effect probably out at 3,000 yards won't affect you more than your ability to shoot.
Now, when you start talking the 6,500, 7,000 yard shots that you've shot before, is that where? I mean, that is obviously where you had to take the curvature of the earth and all sorts of different adjustments that the average 1,000 yard shot you never have to worry about. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. When you get out those distances, that's where you start seeing that stuff take effect because things happen. You're like, what the hell's going on? And then, that and other things. And that's one of the main reasons we're trying to shoot these distances is to get data and figure out like what happens to a round when it gets that far.
I remember you talking about too over the weekend how the jet stream even comes into play.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh yeah, when you're shooting out like even at 5,000 yards, those rounds they're going 1,800 feet up in the air. So yeah, the wind is affecting. There's all kind of things affecting. And the same thing, depending on your bullet, finding a bullet that can stay stable after it goes subsonic is pretty hard to do too. I'm very privileged because Brad Starr he makes some pretty sweet rounds. I mean, we were hitting 7,000 yards and the rounds were still hitting. They were still stable. But yeah, all that stuff affects it. And then it's weird once you hit a certain point with a certain round, once that round starts changing its angle going forward, your come up's almost triple or quadruple to get the same increase in distance. So yeah, we're trying to figure all that stuff out right now.
No,
everybody has all these computer programs. They try to figure all this stuff out, but until you go out and shoot it, do it. I mean, you really don't know.
Right.
I mean, even if the computer programs that give you your dope and all that stuff, you can go out and shoot them, and they'll get you close. They might get you on target sometimes, but there is nothing you can do to replace shooting yard lines and getting the actual data.
Yeah. There's a wonderful question for Coffee and Guns and Ammo Astronomy out there. That's his channel name. It's a great name, by the way. Name, but a cool name. And this is something for maybe a newer shooter. And we're going to base this off once again 1,000 yard rifle, 1,000 yards. is kind of where we want to start at. Is there a magnification or a size of scope that is the minimum you think requirement to get to 1,000-yard shot?
I would say that to shoot consistently at 1,000-yard target, I would go minimum. I would go with, and I'm older. I say anything good. I would say 18 power would be the minimum. I'm not saying you can't do it with a 10 power, but to be consistent and shoot precision groups, I would say 18 power would be my minimum.
Now, I know that you and Clover had a discussion on the front porch about first focal plane and all of that. Where's the technology at these days as far as the different focal planes in which you suggest?
Well, first and second focal plane, it's kind of weird. I grew up old school. I was trained by like old school snipers. Carl South got spoke at my sniper graduation, and one of the guys that started SEAL Sniper School, he was an old school guy, and their theory was always if you're shooting long distance or super long distance, second focal plane is always better. And looking back on it, I mean, I kind of agree with them, but my thing with second and first focal plane is one of the principles of shooting is your sight picture. So with a first focal plane scope, every time you change your zoom, you're changing your sight picture. So I would say my theory on it is if you're starting out shooting and learning the basics, I would go with a second focal plane just so you have the same sight picture every time until you learn. I'm not saying that a first focal plane is not an accurate scope and you can't shoot as far as you want with it, but it does change your sight picture, which is a principle of shooting. So if you're starting out, I would start with the second focal plane, or at least keep your first focal plane on the same power the whole time you're shooting.
Clover, G, you have anything at this point?
No, I'm good.
Just sort of a general question, as like you kind of alluded to, snipers do much more. Their role is much more than just the actual shooting element. So I'm guessing that as a trained sniper, with all that other stuff, I'm thinking like the things like patience and ability to to deal with the distractions, to rule out distractions and that kind of thing that comes from being in an actual war zone. How does, as an instructor, are there elements of that aspect of your experience that you're able to bring to hunters or competition shooters?
Yes, sir, and that's exactly what I teach in my training courses. So yes, so when you're a trained warrior, you're going to combat. Shooting is a skill that is ingrained into you. So it's like a muscle memory, like breathing or walking. You got so much other stuff to think about when you're going on a mission. You can't think about your sight picture shooting or any of that. So our training was always set up to build shooting to be a muscle memory. And that's exactly what we teach in my courses. So those 7 principles of shooting, we train to that. You train how to do them perfect. You do perfect practice and repetition. That's how you build muscle memory. It takes about 15 to 20,000 reps to build perfect muscle memory. And anytime you're in a combat situation where there's hunting, or anytime you're in a stressful situation, your body will always revert back to your muscle memory or subconscious thought. And that's how in the SEAL teams, that's what we taught people how to shoot. So that's kind of what we focused on. And so yeah, shooting is just like a muscle memory, and that's the training we teach.
There's a question up there. Warsaw wants to know, excuse me, wants to know, is it crucial, especially for the high-powered long-range rifles, your opinion on, is it crucial to Loctite the scope down on the rifle? And if so, did you do this when you were in the military?
Is it crucial? It's not crucial, but it's highly recommended.
Right. Yeah. Just asking the question.
I Loctite all my stuff, and there's all kind of theories. Same on gun cleaning, like you can't tighten them enough or whatever. For 25 years, I've always Loctated all my scope bolts and everything. And the way I learned that lesson, there's nothing worse to being on the range, doping your rifle in out to 1,000 yards. You get to 1,000, and then your scope comes loose. Then you got to start all over. So yes, I highly recommend torquing all your bolts exact and Loctiting your rail bolts and your scope bolts.
He wants to know, do you recommend red or blue Loctite?
Do not use red, use blue.
There you go. There you go.
If you use red, you're going to be drilling them out when you try to take it off.
There you go.
Blue works good.
There you go. Well, Charlie, thank you so much. I had a wonderful weekend, had a blast. And like I said, I was completely long range ignorant, as you know, when I showed up, and I got in the car and drove home, and I am all in. I had such a great time, and it's an adrenaline rush. It's especially for someone like me who's competitive. It's a that's outside my comfort zone. So I had a blast. Thank you so much.
Dude, that was awesome. And I'll tell you what, dude, you were shooting in the worst conditions. We probably had 20 and 25 mile an hour winds, and you still got one on target.
I was lucky as hell, but that was because you were telling me where to hold and everything.
Yeah, man, it was a great time. I appreciate you coming down, and appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Absolutely. So, for people that may have missed the first part, I'm going to put your website out there, but talk about where they can find you on social media, your website, and all that.
Yes, sir. Charlie Mac Precision. Again, we're based out of Normandy, Texas, which is about 2 hours from Dallas, Houston, and Austin. I'm trying to teach more classes here, and we're building a pretty cool compound and lodge. When people come down, it's a great time. But I also teach all over the U.S. Actually, right now, probably 90% of the time I travel and teach all over the U.S. You can reach us at charliemacprecision.com. And once you go there, we're on all Facebook, YouTube, and all that. You can check out videos and all the stuff we're doing. Obviously, I'm trying to find a good website guy right now. That's been slacking. I'm on my third one right now, so I'm trying to get all that squared away. My business comes from word of mouth and friends and brothers.
Yeah, it's and guys, I can tell you from my personal experience, if you get a chance to go train with Charlie, it's the whole experience. It's not just the shooting. It's being around the dogs and being around Memphis and Phillips out there. And Phillips, great. Also, the range is a beautiful range, beautiful piece of property. He's got 1,000-yard range. There's a whole other range that goes into 2,000 yards. So I mean, everything there is amazing. The food, whatever, everything is perfect. So go if you're looking to get into long. Let Charlie be your first call, because obviously, talking world-class shooters, he's at the tip of the spear. He is the tip of the spear when it comes to long-range shooting. And do you call this long range, or do you call this ultra long range? And when you're talking 7,000 yards, what is that called? Is that ultra long range?
I just call it shooting and experimenting.
Damn it.
But no, we're actually building up I'm trying to build a good business here, and it's not just like coming to the range and shooting. It's an experience. And obviously you've seen the ranch, but eventually we're going to run some events out there. We're trying to get in a 2-mile target, but eventually we'll run like a whole shooting event where you come out and do pistol, long range, all kind of stuff. So it's a growing business, and yep. I was in the military. If it was a business, they'd be bankrupt, but I'm figuring out the business world. But I truly enjoy what I do, and I love teaching. Was probably my favorite thing to do in the SEAL teams, and I love being in the civilian world. But I'm just trying to figure out how to build this business where people can come out, have a great time, not just go to the range, learn how to shoot, but like an experience, eat good food. Eventually, we'll have little competitions and walking and shooting courses and everything. So we're building a little compound.
Yeah, it's I can't wait to get back, and like I said, guys, if you're thinking about it, and it's not just long range, he's got the carbine classes, got handgun classes. Go to Charlie. I'm telling you, it's well worth the investment, well worth the time, because the experience as a whole is something you're not going to get anywhere else. It was just, I mean, we walked in and we were instantly part of the crew, and it was just, it's a wonderful time. I want to bring Clover and G back in. Clover, do you have anything you want to close on, or tell anything that you're going to talk about the weekend again or anything?
Well, I just want to, again, thank Charlie for the weekend, and then, also for jumping on here and talking. I mean, it's amazing to hear the stories and the knowledge, and he talks a lot about, the reloading guys and them geeking out or nerding out over this or over that, and he nerds out quite a bit on a lot of his own stuff. But I like to hear that. And yeah, it's like hospitality. We even hanging around with Philip, sort of like I guess you, Ghost, and Charlie. Having that military background was something that you kind of identified with. And what was interesting is Philip had that 4-H background, so him and I had a lot of cool conversations because that's sort of where I come from, and yeah, it was just a great weekend. I enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yes, sir. That's one of the things too. I love the military, and I love my time in the military, but I like bringing in different perspectives. That's why both my partners were competition shooters in the civilian world. So I try to get all aspects into shooting and everything else. And obviously they're Texans and have great hospitality too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I found that very interesting. Just kind of talking. I think it was Friday night. Might have been Saturday. I think it was Friday night that you and I were in some of the same places at the same time, which is kind of a small world,
It's a small world. It's crazy the people you run into sometimes, especially being in Normandy, Texas.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
Speaking of small
Gene,
world,
yeah.
speaking of small world,
Yeah.
The Steve that was there that came in, what was it, Saturday night?
Yeah,
Steve.
Steve, the guy with the beard.
Yeah, he was talking. He said, yeah, yeah, you're from up around the Jacksonville area. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, his sister-in-law, I think he said, or something, like is from up there. Well, turns out his sister-in-law is married to my kindergarten teacher's husband.
Dude, that is crazy. You know what's funny? Another thing funny about the guy, he just came from Steve Cobber's class. And Steve Cobber's an older team guy than me. He was in like Vietnam or right after Vietnam era, and he was a sniper instructor. He runs courses out in California. So he just came from his course, and I actually put Steve Cobber's son, who's a team guy, also through training. So yeah, it's a super small world. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and there's only so many team guys. I mean, I guess you kind of either know or know someone that does know. There's probably only 1 or 2 degrees of separation to most of the team guys that are still alive, I guess. So it was really
there's a small world of people you run into like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it is crazy. G, do you have any closing comments or questions that you want to bring Charlie in on?
No, thanks for answering all the others. It's been a great conversation. Just want to back up everything you guys have said. Great conversation. Thanks.
Well, guys, thank you for watching live. If you're listening or watching in replay on the podcast side or the YouTube or GunChannels or GunStreamer or Full 30 or Facebook or wherever the hell that you're watching this at, thank you so much. If you have questions for Charlie or any of us on the panel, please use the comment section below. And if it's for Charlie, I'll try to get those questions to him. And when he's got time, maybe he can come back on sometime and answer or send the answers back, and I'll email the person who did send them. But thanks again for watching. Always go follow and like and subscribe all of Charlie Mike Precision stuff. You can go to their website again, charliemikeprecision.com. You can find their Facebook, their Instagram, their YouTube stuff. Go follow their stuff. Go take a training class from Charlie and Philip. You will not be disappointed. I promise you, it is worth every cent, because actually you should charge more, actually, Charlie, because what you do is not just training. Honest to God, it's like you said, it's not just training, it's the whole thing. And but get out there, get with Charlie, go train, go find CloverTac, go find gun websites, go support their channels, go buy them a cup of coffee on Patreon or whatever. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you soon. Charlie, if you want to jump off when we get off the air, you can. We're getting ready to turn this off, but we stay on and talk afterwards if you want to talk off air. But as far as the live stuff, we shall see you soon, guys. Once again, Semper